death of Rebecca Zahau has been under scrutiny since the story first broke last July. Now, police ruled her death a suicide, but her family insists that she would never kill herself, and that's not just, I think, just an emotion on their part. What they're saying is, look, there is a lot of science here. There was evidence that wasn't explored, that wasn't looked at, and we want to rule all of those things in or out. Now, Mary, her sister, and Doug, her brother-in-law, are here, along with their attorney, Ms. Bremner. Now, I want to ask you, Mary, your goal here is not necessarily to prove that she's been murdered. Your goal is to get to the truth, whatever it is.
That's correct. We want to know the truth of what happened to Becky.
As painful as it might be, if she did take her own life, if that's the truth, you want to know it. You want to deal with whatever the reality is.
That's correct.
And you just want to make sure that everything has been looked at and investigated, science and all. And you're concerned about some of the science here because we know that now, because we all watch CSI and everything, that DNA is a big thing. And you think that there is a deeper dive that can be done on the DNA in this case?
Absolutely. Only 3 people were examined, DNA and Prince wives. Of course, the brother, a little sister of Mary and Becky, Zena, and Nina, a sister-in-law's sister who stopped by. So there's more people they could have looked at. They didn't. Even Jonah, who lived in the house, they didn't look at his prints. And we have mixed DNA so far in this case, all over. In things like, the knife, the bed frame, all through some black gloves that are found at the scene. Mixed DNA, unexplained as to who these other donors are, because we don't know who those people could be.
Now, I have a hard time with something that you said earlier. We have a woman who is found hung to death, naked from a balcony. And there are some women's undergarments found in a guest house garbage can at the same time. How is that not look? What do you mean they didn't investigate that?
They weren't analyzed.
Were they hers?
We don't know.
Were they her size?
They appeared. We don't. They could have been her size, but they're there in the garbage can in the guest house at the time that she dies. And they're not analyzed. And we have footprints that aren't analyzed. We have all kinds of things. We have blood that's not analyzed. I mean, we're a CSI world. You're exactly right. So those are elementary things, really, that you would examine.
Well, there has been some investigation that has gone on at the family's behest. Private investigator Paul Cialino offered his services to help this family find answers. Take a look.
Today we're at St. Joseph, Missouri, and we're interviewing family members of the victim of a suicide, potential homicide. We're looking at the death of your sister with an eye towards proving whether or not she committed suicide or she was murdered. For somebody who commits suicide, it's a very serious decision people take on, and they usually only do it under great, great stress. Did your sister feel responsible for Max's injury?
She didn't. We talked about that.
But when your sister died, Max was still alive.
That's correct.
Max was improving?
Yes.
As part of your sister's religious beliefs, was suicide an acceptable way to end your life?
No.
If your sister was contemplating suicide, she would have said something about it.
She would have. I have yet to find why the Sheriff's Department chose to believe that it was suicide. I want to find out the truth of what happened to my sister.
We'll get to the bottom, all right? We'll resolve it. So we just left Mary and Doug's house. The questions in this case are numerous, and I think we really have to go to San Diego and get some answers. So here we are in Coronado. This is where Rebecca died. This is investigation 101. You come to the scene, you examine it, you speak with people, you make a determination based on the facts known as to whether or not this could have happened. We just finished interviewing another neighbor who told us that his wife absolutely heard someone screaming on the night before Rebecca Zahau's body was discovered. They were quite certain this was a woman screaming for help. So on our way to Dr. Kalish's home, Dr. Kalish is a board-certified forensic psychiatrist, which means he's a medical doctor that specializes in mentally ill people and why they do things and what makes them tick. It's been alleged that she committed suicide. What's your opinion based on what you know to date?
Well, I think it's very, very unlikely for you to conclude that this is a suicide. You'd have to ignore a lot of the evidence.
Let's talk about the the findings for a second. Would you call that sophisticated findings?
Absolutely. It doesn't appear to be something that the average person would be capable of.
Have you ever seen a victim stuff a T-shirt into their mouth prior to hanging themselves?
No. And if she wanted to kill herself by going over the balcony, wouldn't it be easier to leave her feet unbound, climb over the railing, and simply jump?
In a nutshell, none of this makes sense, does it?
Not to me.
Does this indicate homicide or suicide to you?
From my perspective, homicide. This isn't a suicide.